some of our invoices being published on Twitter, like a few weeks back. They got like 1 million impressions. And it was like Lunar Strategy, our invoices that got leaked with all of the names of the people that we were working with.
Was that a big plus for you, or was that a big, oh shit?
Bit of a mix of it. We probably had maybe like 50 people reaching out asking to collaborate with us. And then maybe we had quite a lot of people within the Polkadot community that were not so happy. So yeah, my name is Tim. I got into crypto in 2017. And then about 2 years ago, we launched Lunar Capital, which is our venture arm that focuses on strategic fundraising combined with advisory and helping like 3 to 6 months before TGE projects to go to market. And so yeah, excited to be here today and talk with you guys.
Hey everyone, welcome to another Deal Flow podcast. Today I will be the main host as we don't have Johnny. Johnny has decided to Skype on this session, but we are joined by our special guest today, Tim, who is the founder of Lunar Capital. And we also have Mehdi, who is a regular guest as well, who is part of Animoca Brands. But to kick this off, just before we do, I'll just say a small disclaimer. Anything that he's said in this podcast is not financial advice. We will be talking tokens and everything else. So don't take anything as financial advice. Everything is opinion based. But with that said, let's crack on. But first, let's maybe hand it over to Tim, if you don't mind, Tim, just to kind of give everyone a brief overview of who you are as such, just a small brief, and then we can kick it off and get into more details.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, my name is Tim. I got into crypto in 2017, started an agency in 2019, so 5 years ago. And initially we were working with different crypto startups in the ICO boom, and then we got into the bear market. And generally we were focusing on marketing. So KOLs, PR, and the full setup, like how you take a project to go to market. And then about 2 years ago, we launched Lunar Capital, which is our venture arm that focuses on strategic fundraising combined with advisory and helping like 3 to 6 months before TGE projects to go to market. And since the start of myself, we have a team of about 25 people, and we have helped about 200 companies in the crypto world. So yeah, excited to be here today and talk with you guys.
Perfect, man. I appreciate that. Just to kind of track back a little bit. So you got into crypto in 2017. So prior to you coming to crypto in 2017, what was the background there for you to then pivot into PR?
Marketing. So I was actually writing for a Swedish crypto site. So it was a crypto news site. And so I was writing like news articles about like what was happening, and also doing interviews with different Swedish and Nordic founders. So I've been basically the last 10 years in marketing, and initially, like I said, a journalist and was covering different news stories, especially in the Nordic, so Sweden, Denmark, Finland, like what was happening there in the crypto world.
Just to maybe just a quick overview on the ecosystem of Lunar.
Yeah, so in our main agency, Lunar Strategy, which is we have about 20 full-time employees in that part, and then it's the Lunar Capital, which is about 5 people working full-time. So Lunar Strategy and then Lunar Capital. And then, of course, like we have different clients where we have launched different initiatives for, but those are the two. That's the ecosystem of the.
What is the main thing that you guys do to help companies or projects, I should say?
KOLs. So it's everything from onboarding ambassadors to doing token deals to KOL fundraising, and KOLs is like the bread and butter of the business.
So when what's Lunar Capital then? If you're already helping fundraise on the strategy side, what does Lunar Capital do?
The Lunar Capital is where we invest, and we invest with like in the strategic rounds in different projects. And we also do a bit on the advisory, but primarily it's like we invest with our own capital, and we also invest with our network of KOLs into projects.
And then is there overlap between the strategy and the capital? So if you're investing in a certain project, let's say you can name XYZ as a project, you guys are investing capital of your own money. Is that then giving them access into the strategy, or are you doing them on a separate accounting basis?
So it's two different entities, but of course there's a lot of overlap in deal flow and in how we collaborate, but it's two different teams. For Lunar Capital, it's an office in Cape Town in South Africa, and then for Lunar Strategy, the main office is in Lisbon, for where we have the Lunar Strategy team. So of course there's a lot of overlap when it comes to like deal flow and sharing opportunities, but capital is more on the fundraising side, and then Lunar Strategy is marketing. So
in terms of how you've grown inside of Web3, do you have any prior like founding experience for you to come into Web3, build a company? I know you said you got marketing background, but have you built other companies previously?
So early on, it was like more, I started like some small like drop shipping. I think like back in 2015, I was running some smaller drop shipping stores and more into that part. So yeah, like mixed success in those parts. But then I think over the last, what is it, like 6 years, it has been all into marketing. So marketing is the bread and butter, and before that, like some small drop shipping ventures, but nothing apart from that.
Okay, and in terms of coming into Web3, you're helping these companies with KOLs. How do you establish good KOLs? Like, how does that come about? There's so many in this industry. I don't think, I can make a bold statement that a lot of them are garbage. How are you, looking at KOLs and knowing which ones are good, and then also providing them to these projects to make sure that they have, success?
So a lot of it comes down to building a network of people that you have met up with and collaborated with for a long time. In the crypto space, KOLs kind of get the bad rap because of some bad apples that probably promote things that they shouldn't. How to evaluate the KOL and like the core philosophy is, let's say like this, I would recommend a friend to invest in a certain project. Probably that person trusts me enough to, if I recommend it and I endorse it, he probably would do it. If I would recommend 10 different projects to him, 3 of them fail, would he trust me the next time? Probably not. So when it comes to like collaborating with different KOLs, it comes down to how much like influence do they have over their audience, combined with do they create good engaging content, combined with who actually follows that KOL. So there's a lot of tools out there where you can analyze like what VCs that follow a KOL, what project founders that follow a KOL, what other KOLs that follow that KOL. So you kind of like need to combine the different parts and then build up like an evaluation of that KOL, and then combine that with the pricing, because the most expensive KOLs might not always be the best. So it's a lot of things that comes down to it. And like, yeah, we have almost 10 people within our company that just do this every day out, day in.
Yeah, one of the problem is, let's say if a KOL invest. So after investment, post investment, how do you guys ensure the KOL is doing what it was intended to do? Like, do you guys have any post investment performance review? What are some of the metrics that you guys use to keep them on the toes?
When it comes to the KOL investment side, then earlier this year, it was like, especially in Q4, Q1, everybody wanted into the new launches, the new deals. And what often happens is that, let's say a project raised 5 million from VCs like you guys, and then afterwards they do a strategic round, let's say 500K, that they allocate to KOLs. And then depending on how credible and like how good the KOL is, then they would get certain allocation with a little bit discounted terms or shorter vesting to get into the round. when it comes to the like management and reviewing, then of course like you need to build up structures, because a lot of the KOLs invest into 100 projects, 200 projects. So what we do is that we track everything in like Airtable. We have very set deliverables. So let's say you invest here, you need to make X, Y, Z. And if not, then we might have stipulated some allocation that could be clawed back, or we basically have different stipulations to make sure that the KOLs deliver what has been agreed on.
Yeah. And in your experience, in terms of incentive alignment, what is the best mechanism to kind of keep the KOL and project aligned with each other? Is it the KOL investing in the project? Is it advisory token, or is it in your opinion, maybe the project giving out cash for a certain milestone? So in terms of these three instruments, or maybe they're more instrumental, would love to learn more. Which, in your experience, I think you mentioned earlier, you have advised in terms of go-to-market for more than 200 projects, best tools for incentive alignment with KOL and project?
Yeah. So when it comes to incentive alignment, it comes down to a little bit what category in the market that they are. For example, we have helped some DeFi projects to onboard angel investors. And what we were offering to the KOLs was like still 12 months cliff and then 24 months vesting, but they got a boosted referral link combined with boosted airdrop allocation in the referral link, for example. So it always comes down to like, okay, so what value does the KOL bring to the table? And how can you ensure that the KOL is not just, because what we have seen in Q2 and Q3 is that KOLs just dump, the product goes down, and then they've actually not even been beneficial, and they could even have damaged the project because they are unhappy, the price is down, they've lost money, and they kind of like, so how to build a structure? It depends more on like case to case basis. In DeFi, you can boost referral links, you can add like those parts, which is very much a long-term incentives. I think what right now is happening in Q3, like the last maybe 4 or 5 months, KOLs doesn't want to invest. They don't have the cash, they don't have the liquidity. What we have done then is that we have done like let's say it's like a cashback model, which is kind of like a hybrid. Let's say a KOL would invest 20,000, then they will get a 5K monthly retainer in USDT, for example, if they do XYZ. So we have very clear deliverables that are linked to it. Because then it's like they still get the tokens, they're still aligned, they still get the cash back, so they don't have to commit with, like, they don't have to risk their own capital, and they will get back the cash. So it's kind of like a hybrid model that works well right now in this type of the market. And at the same time, the KOL have put in their own money. They have skin in the game. They are part of it, but they don't take the same risk. But of course, that can only be offered to like the top tier, like creators that adds a lot of value and create good content.
You mentioned there are sector differentials like DeFi, gaming, infra. In your opinion, like maybe you can like do it in a descending or ascending order. Which sector you think the KOL strategy works the best? Which sector needs improvement? Whether it's DeFi, gaming, infra, can you give us a rundown on which sector it's must to have a KOL in order for the token to do well, or there's a lot of demand from the project, versus the sector where there is least demand or there is a asymmetry between finding a good KOL and project wanting a KOL?
I would kick it off from a little bit another angle. I would say more, is your business model more B2B or B2C? Combined with also who is the end contributor to the growth of the project. So maybe that's one other angle I would add to it. But especially in gaming, of course, gaming is very much retail focused, and it comes from content creators, primarily on YouTube, Twitch. Of course, that's an industry where you need strong content creators to back you, because they are the ones that have the attention, they are the ones that control the narrative, and they are the ones that control like what's happening. So of course, gaming is one part that is very much retail focused. AI DePin is another part that is also very much retail focused, because usually, let's say in the DePin space, it's usually retail that will have some sort of an mining device, mobile device, Chrome extension, desktop version. A lot of what adds value to the protocol comes from the retail base. So that part is also very important to have KOLs as the backers. If it comes to more like reward tokens, loyalty tokens that come that like where SaaS products are kind of implementing tokenomics into their business model, it's not as important because like the main driver is like, let's say, token buybacks of the B2B customers. And that way it's not as important to have KOLs that create content. Then it's more important to have like the KOL that are more like advisors or like strategic backers, because they can also provide like new customers. They can also provide intros. They can support with like hiring like the best talent. So it's a lot of nuances to it, but I think the most important part for KOLs is where it's very retail focused and where the content creators basically sets the tone of the narrative in the market.
Yeah, DePin is an interesting one. I thought DePin would be one of those things where KOL doesn't have influence. So that's interesting. That is something new that I learned today. In terms of the DePin sector, who would you say like some of the bigger names are in terms of KOL or in terms of advisors that basically kind of move the narrative? Because that's one sector I am pretty surprised that KOLs are that involved.
Yeah, so I think when it comes to like the content creators, then it's a lot of overlap between the AI and DePin, and a lot of people are like combining the two. I think some of the key people on YouTube, one of the big ones kind of in the AI is like, of course, Alex Becker. He talks a lot about like when he has his own like tone of voice and his own style, but when he talks about the coin, where it talks about like a niche, then you can really see that it has an impact. On Twitter, of course, there is kind of like what happens with the biggest KOLs and influencers is that when the markets are down, they go very silent. They don't post, they don't do breakdowns. A lot of them are kind of waiting to post until like it's upwards market activity kind of. And like the guys like Pentoshi, Il Capo, Ash, a lot of them kind of wait until the market is like exciting before they do like good breakdowns into different posts.
Maybe I can just jump in here and maybe just backtrack just slightly on some of the incentives for KOLs. I think my biggest frustration is that I don't think the alignment model and the incentive model is the right one, meaning that these KOLs should invest or be incentivized by an allocation or a free allocation or have better terms than anyone else because they're doing so and so. Like the big frustration is that these KOLs have zero interest, most likely, or 99% of the times, in any product that they're actually promoting. I believe that the better model is taking the current influencer model that we have in Web 2 on social media. And that is, let's say they're leading a campaign, this project's leading a campaign, or they just want an affiliation or someone else as a face of the company. They should just be incentivized per campaign in dollars or in the token to equivalent of what the person wants to pay. And if they do want to give a bit more in the token, cool, have that under vesting amount. But they shouldn't be saying, oh, hey guys, here's an investment in the best vesting, or here's some free tokens. Here's $30,000 for you to cover certain stuff. For whatever reason, they're just dumping because they have zero interest, and it should just be done on a campaign by basis for the project. That being said, I think the industry will change. I think we're seeing that now with, everyone was hoo-haing about KOLs a few months back, or maybe even a few weeks back, but now we're seeing KOLs actually don't have a real impact. They have no interest in the product. But going forward, moving on from this, the question would be is, like, how do you, I know you've spoken about that you have different KOLs for different sectors. Are you actually looking and approaching different KOLs to say, oh, this is an AI project, we should use these 4 or these 5?
Yeah.
Or are you just mass messaging everyone on your list and saying, hey, here's an opportunity for this project, you should promote it?
Yeah.
Like, how does that work?
So often we get the opportunity to say like this, like either we get a commission in USDT or in token allocation ourselves, which depends a bit on the market. So we often also are part of like, or even sometimes we invest in the projects ourselves. So when we take a project, we sit down, have a workshop internally and externally with their team. And then we figure out like, okay, so who is the best KOL persona to onboard here? Okay, so first of all, who do we have that are organically already talking about the project? Those are kind of like the top people that we want to get in contact with. Because if it's a project that they're already organically talking about, organically following, or organically engaging with, of course, that's an audience that we want to reach out to. Secondly, is that we analyze like competitors and what KOLs follows those competitors and those within that market. Then we also use on Twitter, you can use different tools and also Grok to figure out like what KOLs talk about that topic or have talked about it extensively, as well as same on YouTube, so that we can kind of like see it. Okay, so this person already talks about like what's happening in the AI niche, what's happening in this niche. So like a company or a person that just must DMs KOLs and says like this, first come, first serve, is not a credible or like a strong way to do it. You need to be strategic. So first, like, who is that, like the closest circle that are already interested in that product? Then who is interested in the niche and who is talking about the niche? And then you kind of go outwards from that with that aspect in mind, because that's like the only way like you should really do it, because to actually have an impact with the content creators and KOLs that you bring on board.
Are you choosing them, and then how are you getting them to come on board? Do you have that leverage to say, hey guys, this is the perfect project for you, I think you guys should take a look and be interested? Like, how does that work? Because I'm assuming you have to meet targets for different projects because they want X amount of KOLs for, you know, their TGE, which is going to be probably the most thing that they use them for. But how does that work? Like, how are you convincing them, and do you have that leverage over some of the KOLs to be doing that?
So, yeah, of course. And it goes back to a little bit like if we have given, let's say, a KOL high quality projects in the past, then of course they have more trust in our recommendation or our endorsement. Because if we work with a project, we kind of endorse it. So we have within our like close network a few, maybe 200-300, and maybe within our broader network almost 1,000 people. And especially early on in the round, we are very selective with who we contact and who we reaches out to. With quite a few of the projects, we're also doing like a webinar with a founder and with our KOL group. So we have like on Telegram, we have like a deal flow group with a few hundred people. With some of the projects, we also have a webinar with a founder where they can kind of like make their case to a KOL why they should be excited to go into and join in on that project. So it's kind of like with the first part, we are very strategically reaching out to the people that either follow or that are close to it. And then we like often even record like a Loom video where we explain like, here is this project, here's what they're doing, here's their roadmap, here's what they're building, here is why we are excited about it. And then that's kind of like the first part. And then the second part is like we hosted like a webinar or a discussion with the founder where they can make their pitch to the KOLs in a mass, or even have like shoot in the questions to the founder.
And then you're managing them afterwards as well, as in the KOLs, to make sure they're hitting certain KPIs.
Yeah. So afterwards we track in Airtable. We have like a very extensive team that tracks, manages, and reports on the numbers. Sometimes they want to do it internally.
So what happens then if a certain individual KOL is not meeting certain KPIs, targets, etc.?
And so from our side, we have quite a few people that we have like blacklisted on our side, like that we will not work with again. Because when we with a KOL, it's a relationship, and if we onboard them to a project and they don't deliver what has been agreed on, then it's our reputation towards the end client that is suffering, because we kind of like said that this is a good KOL, let's work with them. And if a KOL doesn't deliver, then of course we need to take like some sort of an have a conversation to understand like why. Maybe it was a bad deal to begin with, and maybe we can renegotiate. But from our side, we have like some KOLs that we would never work with again.
Let's say extreme example. Let's say you have an average
Yeah.
KOL, and let's say you have Alex Becker. So what would be the KPI for Alex Becker versus like
Yeah.
a average normal
So
KOL?
it depends on what timing of the campaign it is. Because usually if it's leading up to a TG, then we have like, let's say a referral link where they also get a bit of cashback. If you sell like a node sale, for example, they get a bit of cashback. Then we track, of course, how many signups that they get. Otherwise, a lot of KPIs are quite hard to track because you don't really want to include like links into posts or too many links into posts, because it can also damage kind of like the reach of it. Or is it the best way? Because then it feels less organic if you include like links in it. So it's KPIs, of course, when it's leading up to a TG or when it's leading up to a launch, then of course sometimes you need to have like a referral link and those parts and track that to make sure we get that aligned. But early on, let's say a repost, you can't even track how much reach it gets. So in quite a lot of the stages, it's just like track impressions and then manually track like engagement in the comment section, because you can also fake a lot of the reach and the clicks. So a lot of those can kind of be gamified. So early on, it's mostly to track impressions combined with like manually audit the content. And then when it's like to a TG or something, then we would have like some sort of an affiliate link where you can also get the cashback from referred like investors, for example.
Just going back to, the KPIs and, so someone like an Alex Becker or an Ansem, or I don't know who else is big in this space. I don't know, whoever else has got, a decent
Fit
following.
boy.
And yeah. So are you telling me that if these guys didn't fulfill their KPIs, you're going to blacklist them?
It depends on what deal, because you wouldn't make a deal where they wouldn't have to like, then you have done a bad deal to begin with.
Yeah, like I understand like a small KOL, you're like, you know what, who cares? See you later, bye-bye. Chuck him to the side, bring a new small one in, and that fulfills that. But if you're talking about a big name, question is are we treating these bigger KOLs differently to someone's smaller? So like, you've got a project, Kobe, let's say, and he's saying, look, I'm investing, whatever, cool, I'm a KOL. Not that he is, but and he's I'm not going to do anything after he's made that investment. Are you going to blacklist him because he's like not going to listen to you guys, or you're just like, cool, we got him, I don't want to upset him? How does that work from your side?
After being in the market for 5 years, we have seen it all. And we wouldn't make a deal that we knew that they would not follow to begin with. So it depends on like how you structure the deal. Sometimes it's enough to just have them as an angel investor, and we have agreed that we can, like we have signed a SAP where we can like showcase that they are an investor. So in those cases, of course, it's more custom deals. We need to like negotiate, like, can we mention that they have invested? Will they make any post? Will they make any mentions? All of that is negotiated before. And usually we even have 1 or 2 meetings with them to make sure that the contracts that we have agreed on and the terms are delivered. We have a few of like the top, let's say if we take the Twitter and you take the top 10 people or top 25 people on Twitter, like with the most influence, we have maybe 1 or 2 of them that we would not work with again, because we have seen how they treat us and they treat the client, and we would not work with them because maybe they were like saying things that are completely unacceptable, or they were breaching contracts. So maybe at least I know 2 of the top 25 most influential people. No.
Do you want to name the 2 on this podcast?
We had.
Okay.
We had actually
okay.
So one of our big, one of the clients that we work with is called Polkadot. For them, we actually had some of our invoices being published on Twitter, like a few weeks back, and they got like 1 million impressions because it was like people were talking about like these people are being paid by Polkadot on a monthly basis, and then everybody was attacking them, and it was actually I think like the main post got like 1 million impressions, and then the other ones got like a few, like almost another million. And it was like Lunar strategy, our invoices that got leaked with all of the names of the people that we were working with. So yeah, so it's like a very delicate thing. And of course, like we want to, but yeah, like so you can see a lot of the people that we work with.
And then how do you keep KOLs on board once token has gone down below their valuation?
We just have to jump on a call and say like this is the risk that we know in crypto, and explain like what happened. So of course it's usually myself or one other person from the team that sometimes we'll have to have those meetings with them. And often we are part in the same boat from our side. And I think most people understand the risks in crypto, and a little bit similar to like just one good investment could pay off for 10 losses. So like if you strike a few really good ones, then you kind of know that some of them will not perform so well. It could be a hack. It could be something happening that is beyond your control. And I think everybody kind of understands that. So of course we have had to deal with some situations, but then you just have to say, here is the deal. Here's the contract. Here's the SAFT. Here we explained it. Our lawyers in Portugal have crafted very strong like guidelines for managing like situations like that.
And then just go back to the Polkadot situation with the leak of saying some of your documentation. Was that a big plus for you, or was that a big oh shit, like our invoices come out, or did it help with people reaching out because I know what you guys do now?
Yeah, a bit of a mix of it. We probably had maybe like 50 people reaching out asking to collaborate with us, and then maybe we had quite a lot of people within the Polkadot community that were not so happy. And you need to be very like communities, like, so probably like a mix of it. But when we work with like a community or a project, it's something that we want to work with in the long term and that we believe in. So we just have to explain what happened and showcase and clearly like say, here is what campaigns we have been running. Here is the impact that it has had on community growth, and here's the value that we have added to the ecosystem. And then, like outline why we did what, like the campaigns that we have been doing. And when you have it, like, so probably like a mix, but of course it's never nice when it's a controversial situation. But I think when we outline clearly to the community and the stakeholders, like, here's the campaigns, here's the value that have been added, then it got quite cleared up.
I have a final question on my side. I think earlier on you mentioned that you guys have helped about 200 projects in terms of go-to-market strategy. So my question is, one or a few example of very, very novel go-to-market strategy that never has been implemented before, but you guys were the first one to kind of implement. Give us those examples, and maybe some of those go-to-market strategy that in hindsight you guys thought would work but didn't work. In fact, it was a stupid idea. Yeah, we'd love to learn more regarding both.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were quite early with, I remember this was back in 2020, where we did some strategic airdrops to Cosmos stakers, and it went completely viral because it was very early on when you kind of like were airdropping back to like people that were staking certain amounts of tokens, and then the campaign completely blew up and the market cap went I think to 100 million like within super quickly at the round launch with fairly small airdrops. But this was maybe 4 years ago, and then it has been like overused 10 times over. And then like you understand like that the token doesn't have like that much value if you don't have like a use case, and you don't have like, you're not creating new demand for your token, because an airdrop is only valuable like as a gimmick to kind of like, airdrops is kind of like you standing on the, like giving out like initial a test so that you can explore it. That worked very well early on, and then it has been used over and over and over. When it comes to like a go-to-market, then I think we have done this year alone, where it's comes down to like strategic token swaps with other influential partners. And we can see that this one, so earlier this year, we did like co-marketing with other projects. So let's say like this, we allocate X amount of tokens, let's say 50K, that we can allocate to another partner. They allocate 50K back to us, and it's kind of like a mutual swap between them. When it's like with with equal strong partners, and then you do co-marketing campaigns around it, and that has been.
Is it working?
So in the last few months, nothing has been working when the market is just goes down. But when it goes up, it's a very like powerful message, because you can also run like shared Twitter spaces, and you can get the first opportunity to pitch your vision to a brand new, like very engaged audience. So that has performed.
I think it depends on who you do the token 100%. Swap with. I know recently Mochaverse did a token swap with Ton. Yep. So I think about $10 million worth of Mocha swap with Ton. And I think it was done about $1 billion valuation. And the token was trading lower. And then from that point onwards, right now, it's already up 50% after that news, like in the last 8 days. Because now the market is pricing in, okay, this is the first one. There'll be a few more. So, I think that's something, especially for infra project, I think could be interesting.
Because it's also, you are kind of like feeding a message into the leadership of the other team. Because if you know that you have like a skin in the game in the other protocol, then you might share like some extra deal flow with the other partner. You might introduce them in some different ways. So it's kind of like a very powerful way to connect projects with other teams, and you kind of align interests to grow together. So that has worked well. And then quite often, like the KOLs earlier this year, we had a few really successful launches with like the KOLs, where we kind of build up like a 3-phase approach leading up to the launch. So the first, like you kind of like are a little bit mysterious, and then you get more direct with like the few weeks leading up to it. And then you go in with like 2-3 launch pads. You have the KOLs that are reposting all the posts. And then you create like the investor Twitter spaces, where let's say you invite like 10 angel investors. You hold like a Twitter spaces explaining why they are excited to be in the ecosystem. And then you launch on, you split it out maybe over like 5 exchanges, a few tier ones. So that kind of like the traditional like way with like launch pads for marketing, you spread it across different communities, and then you launch. Worked really well in like Q1. A lot of the token prices has come down quite substantially, but it works very, very well to build up like the hype and build up the excitement leading up to the TGE. And now everybody has just delays, and they're like pushing it, because a lot of the launches right now are even launching a lot below the private rounds. We have seen some projects that maybe raised at a few hundred million, fully diluted, and then they launch at like 75% down. And that's a very rough comeback to come back for, when you have raised very high privately and then you launch, and the market doesn't like that valuation. So it also depends on like where we are in the market, and you need to be very, so I think soon, probably in a few months, a new like launch window will open. It probably will be so many different launches happening every week. So let's see how that turns out.
Perfect, man. Really appreciate that.
Thank you so much for joining us, Tim.
It was my pleasure.
Perfect, Tim. I really appreciate having you on today's podcast. A massive insight in what you guys do, Lunar strategy in terms of helping projects with KOLs, also how KOLs sometimes act in certain situations. Congrats on all of the success as well with Lunar Capital as well. Again, appreciate you coming on. Hope there's a lot to learn from a project's perspective, and also from a KOL perspective as well. But yeah, just to close this off, a quick disclaimer just to end this off as well. Anything that was talked about in this episode is purely non-financial advice. It's all opinion based. So please do your own research, and if anything was talked about on this episode. But thank you so much for listening in. Tim, appreciate you coming on as a guest, and hope to see you around in the Web3.